I'm sure she called him Magnus. Miss Honey said that was his first name. And what did your father call Miss Trunchbull? Her name is Agatha. Miss Honey said that's what he would have called her. And lastly, Matilda said, what did your father and Miss Trunchbull call you around the house? They called me Jenny. Miss Honey said. Matilda pondered these answers very carefully. Let me make sure I've got them right, she said. In the house at home, your father was Magnus, Miss Trunchbull was Agatha, and you are Jenny. Am I right? That is correct, Miss Honey said. Thank you, Matilda said. And now I won't mention the subject anymore. Miss Honey wondered what on earth was going on the mind of this child. Don't do anything silly, she said. Matilda laughed and turned away and ran up the path to her front door, calling out as she went, Goodbye, Miss Honey. Thank you so much for the tea. The practice. Matilda found the house empty as usual. Her father was not yet back from work. Her mother was not yet back from bingo, and her brother might be anywhere. She went straight into the living room and opened the drawer of the sideboard where she knew her father kept a box of cigars. She took one out and carried it up to her bedroom and shut herself in. Now for the practice, she told herself. It's going to be tough, but I'm determined to do it. Her plan for helping Miss Honey was beginning to form beautifully in her mind. She had it now in almost every detail, but in the end, it all depended upon her being able to do one very special thing with her eye power. She knew she wouldn't manage it right away, but she felt fairly confident that with a great deal of practice and effort, she would succeed in the end. The cigar was essential. It was perhaps a bit thicker than she would have liked, but the weight was about right. It would be fine for practicing with. There was a small dressing table in Matilda's bedroom with a hairbrush and comb on it, and 2 library books. She cleared these things to one side and laid the cigar down in the middle of the dressing table. Then she walked away and sat on the end of her bed. She was now about 10 feet from the cigar. She settled herself and began to concentrate. And very quickly this time she felt the electricity beginning to flow inside her head. Gathering itself behind the eyes, and the eyes became hot and billions of tiny invisible hands began pushing out like sparks towards the cigar. Move, she whispered, and to her intense surprise, almost at once, the cigar with its little red and gold paper bent around its middle, rolled away across the top of the dressing table, and fell on the carpet. Matilda had enjoyed it. It was lovely doing it. It had felt as though sparks were going round and round inside her head and flashing out of her eyes. It had given her a sense of power that was almost ethereal. And how quickly it had been this time. How simple. She crossed the bedroom and picked up the cigar and put it back on the table. Now for the difficult one, she thought, but if I have the power to push, then surely I also have the power to lift. It is vital I learned how to lift it. I must learn how to lift it right up into the air and keep it there. It is not a very heavy thing, a cigar. She sat on the end of the bed and started again. It was easy now to summon up the power behind her eyes. It was like pushing a trigger in the brain. Lift, she whispered. Lift, lift. At first, the cigar started to roll away, but then, with Matilda concentrating fiercely, one end of it slowly lifted up about an inch off the tabletop. With a colossal effort, she managed to hold it there for about 10 seconds. Then it fell back again. Phew, she gasps. I'm getting it. I'm starting to do it. For the next hour, Matilda kept practicing, and in the end, she had managed by the sheer power of her eyes to lift the whole cigar clear off the table about 6 inches into the air and hold it there for about a minute. Then suddenly she was so exhausted she fell back on the bed and went to sleep. That was how her mother found her later in the evening. What's the matter with you? The mother said, waking her up. Are you ill? Oh gosh, Matilda said, sitting up and looking around. No, I'm all right. I was a bit tired, that's all. From then on, every day after school, Matilda shut herself in her room and practiced with the cigar, and soon it all began to come together in the most wonderful way. 6 days later, by the following Wednesday evening, she was able not only to lift the cigar up into the air, but also to move it around exactly as she wished. It was beautiful. I can do it, she cried. I can really do it. I can pick the cigar up just with my eye power and push it and pull it in the air any way I want. All she had to do now was to put her great plan into action. The third miracle. The next day was Thursday, and that, as the whole of Miss Honey's class knew, was the day on which the headmistress would take charge of the first lesson after lunch. In the morning, Miss Honey said to them, "One or two of you did not particularly enjoy the last occasion when the headmistress took the class. So let us all try to be especially careful and clever today. How are your ears, Eric, after your last encounter with Miss Trunchbull?" "She stretched them," Eric said. "My mother said she's positive they're bigger than they were." "And Rupert?" Miss Sunny said. "I'm glad to see you didn't lose any of your hair after last Thursday." "My head was jolly sore afterwards," Rupert said. "And you, Nigel," Miss Sunny said, "do please try not to be smart alert with the headmistress today. You were really quite tricky to her last week." "I hate her," Nigel said. "Try not to make it so obvious," Miss Sunny said. "It doesn't pay. She's a very strong woman. She has muscles like steel ropes." "I wish I'd grown up," Nigel said. "I'd knock her flat." "I doubt you would," Miss Sunny said. "No one has ever got the better of her yet." "What will she be testing us on this afternoon?" a small girl asked. "Almost certainly the 3 times table," Miss Sunny said. "That's what you are all meant to have learned this past week." Make sure you know it. Lunch came and went. After lunch, the class reassembled. Miss Honey stood at one side of the room. They all sat silent, apprehensive, waiting. And then, like some giant of doom, the enormous Trunchbull strode into the room in her green breeches and cotton smock. She went straight to her jug of water and lifted up by the handle and peered inside. I am glad to see, she said, that there are no slimy creatures in my drinking water this time. If there had been, then something exceptionally unpleasant would have happened to every single member of this class. And that includes you, Miss Honey. The class remained silent and very tense. They had learned a bit about this tigress by now, and nobody was about to take any chances. Very well, boomed the Trunchbull. Let us see how well you know your 3 times table. Or to put it another way, let us see how badly Miss Honey has taught you the 3 times table. Miss Trunchbull was standing in front of the class, legs apart, hands on hips, scowling at Miss Honey, who stood silent to one side. Matilda, sitting motionless at her desk in the second row, was watching things very closely. You, the Trunchbull shouted, pointing a finger the size of a rolling pin at a boy called Wilfred. Wilfred was on the extreme right of the front row. Stand up, you, she shouted at him. Wilfred stood up. Recite the 3 times table backwards. The Trunchbull barked. Backwards? Stammered Wilfred. But I haven't learned it backwards. There you are, cried the Trunchbull, triumphant. She's taught you nothing. Miss Honey, why have you taught them absolutely nothing at all in the last week? That is not true, headmistress, Miss Honey said. They have all learned their 3 times table. But I see no point in teaching it to them backwards. There is little point in teaching anything backwards. The whole object of life, headmistress, is to go forward. I venture to ask whether even you, for example, can spell a simple word like wrong backwards straight away. I very much doubt it. Don't you get impertinent with me, Miss Honey? The Trunchbull snapped. Then she turned back to the unfortunate Wilfred. Very well, boy, she said. Answer me this. I have 7 apples, 7 oranges, and 7 bananas. How many pieces of fruit do I have altogether? Hurry up. Get on with it. Give me the answer. That's adding up, Wilfred cried. That isn't the 3 times table. You blithering idiot, shouted the Trunchbull. You festering gumboil, you flea-bitten fungus. That is the 3 times table. You have 3 separate lots of fruit, and each lot has 7 pieces. 3 sevens are 21. Can't you see that, you stagnant cesspool? I'll give you one more chance. I have 8 coconuts, 8 monkey nuts, and 8 naughty little idiots like you. How many nuts do I have altogether? Answer me quickly. Poor Wilfred was properly flustered. Wait, he cried. Please wait. I've got to add up. 8 coconuts and 8 monkey nuts. He started counting on his finger.